The following is a presentation of the Eagles Sports Network.
Alongside Carson-Newman women's basketball coach Mike Mincey, I'm Michael Watchering, and this is the Eagles Sports Network. Carson-Newman gets set for his final regular season game of the year at Newberry. Coach, final regular season game. Really the way that you have to look at it now is you have probably 3 guaranteed basketball games left. Where do you think your team is at going pretty much into postseason play at this point?
Overall, we're probably in a decent spot, but, these last 2 games at home, I don't think we've played our best basketball, so I wouldn't think that we're actually peaking right now. But, one of the things we've talked about is, getting our field goal percentage up around that 43% mark, and then getting our three-point percentage up to around 35. And over the last few games, they've been able to get that accomplished. Granted, I wouldn't say that our performance overall has been great. At least from a shooting standpoint, we've got it to where I felt like we needed it to be going into the final regular season game, going into the tournament. So, obviously this time of year, you're only looking at W's. You can nitpick it all you want, but you can see how easily teams can get beat with some of these games that have been played. So, we're just fortunate to continue to win. We got 21 wins. We're locked in the host. I feel pretty good about the NCAA tournament. So, Saturday is just another opportunity for us to be able to go play before we actually get into the SAC tournament.
The Newberry side that you've defeated in 6 straight games, 5 of which have come by double figures. Of course, last year, just that 6-point win at their place in the first conference game of the year. 3-headed monster over there. What challenges does that group represent?
They're a good-sized team, obviously, very fundamentally sound. They're skilled. They shoot the ball well from the perimeter and, all around, and they shoot well from the 3. When they're playing well, they're very tough to deal with. They've had their moments this year that they haven't necessarily played well, but here of late, they beat Wingate on their home floor, held them with 51 points, went over to Anderson the other night. It was down to the last minute, tie game. They could have had beating the number 2 and number 1 team in our conference, number 1 team in the region. So it just kind of shows you how dangerous they are. They've had some setbacks this year, but right now it would appear that they're actually playing really good basketball down the home stretch.
In your first 6 seasons, your teams were 38 and 39 on the road. These last 2 years, you're combined 21 and 5. Obviously, these teams have maybe been a step above those first 6 years, but how have you seen your team's mindset evolve on the road these last 2 years?
Well, even back to those days that you referred to, we had talked about going on the road and winning is difficult. We've talked about it all the time. If you really, you got to steal some games on the road. You got to beat a few people that maybe you shouldn't, and you got to win all your home games. The talent level picked up a little bit these last few years, and we had some really good players that could go on the road and get things done. And, we were able to get to the rim a little bit better, get to the free throw line. And it wasn't just, in some of those other teams, you were relying on, man, hopefully we could just make shots today and they're off and we can get a win. But, we've been able to go into people's places and maybe not even play our best game or shoot the ball well and still come away with victory. So a lot of it, honestly, just comes down to the fact that our player personnel picked up a little bit, and when you have good players, you can win a lot of games. Not that we didn't have good players, but a lot of times we've entered these games these last few years, and we've just had more people, better players, and when that happens, you can get that 21-6, whatever kind of record on the road.
Final question for you. You mentioned the fact that Newberry is a good-sized team. You mentioned the fact that it's all about W's this time of year. You've challenged some of your young post players to mature a little bit. How big of a challenge is Saturday against Meg Essex, a perennial all-conference player, to try to have one of these players set up and establish themselves as that key 5 spot?
Well, we tried to do that the last time we played. I know we played Pierce some. I don't remember I know Chan played on her. So of course, she would be undersized. But that's why we went out and got these sizable post players, is to guard players like Essex, when Marta was playing last year and she was sizable, so that when we run into a team that has a sizable post player, we've got somebody we can put on her to try to limit her as best we can. You don't want to just play with all guards, and we don't have to. We've got even though they're young and they're freshmen, we've been trying to groom them all year long to where when we get to tournament time, if we face the right opponent, we can stick them in there and they can try to limit the other team's best player potentially, or their post player that can get buckets. And so I'm happy with what they've done. They're still developing, they're still young, but it's going to be crucial down the stretch because a lot of teams are going to face Saturday against Newberry and then on into the tournament if we want to advance. We're going to see really good post players, and hopefully they're ready to step up to the challenge.
Coach, appreciate the time. Best of luck Saturday.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Carson-Newman women's basketball coach Mike Mincey. I'm Michael Watchering, and this is the Eagles Sports Network.